Hey everyone, it's Mojaxx back in the DJcity UK lab. I will often say that a review is long awaited or has been a long time coming, but in this case it's definitely true because I've spent more time testing this product than anything else in the history of this channel, and now it's finally time to talk about Phase. Let's get into it. I'll condense down the story of Phase as far as I can. Prior to Phase, the French company behind it, MWM, were best known to DJs for their wireless mix fader for portable turntables. But then in January 2018, they showed up at the NAMM trade show with Phase, a wireless replacement for DVS control vinyl. I'll talk about the tech itself shortly. Then they took it to the 3-Style Finals in Poland, where they impressed a lot of people with demos, and we did a DJcity cutting room episode using it. By that April, I'd been dispatched to Paris to make a first look video, which wasn't MWM's idea, it was because my DJcity team was so excited by the product. At that point, it was still completely at a prototype stage, but it worked. Shortly after that, MWM launched pre-orders for Phase, and that's when things started to go a little awry. Because it wasn't just my colleagues who were excited, Phase really caught the imagination of a lot of DJs. So they pre-ordered in droves, expecting delivery in September. September came and no Phase. MWM announced a delay of 2 months in order to make the final product better. Some people weren't happy, but hey, a couple of months wouldn't be the end of the world. Except then in November, another delay to the end of January. At this point, a lot of people, myself included, were starting to seriously wonder if this product was just vaporware, destined to never ship. But MWM hadn't gone into hiding. They were still out there at the 2019 NAMM show now, showing off Phase to the world and signalling that they would eventually have a product for people. Naturally, they missed their self-imposed January deadline too, but at the start of April this year, shipping actually began. Thankfully, that's the end of the story because Phase was perfect out of the box and was everything we'd hoped for, right? Well, no. Before we get to the next chapter in the story, let me explain what Phase actually does. So I think it's really important for anyone thinking about getting into Phase to understand exactly how it works, what it does, and crucially, what it can't do. So we look at a regular DVS setup. We have a piece of control vinyl with just an audio file of the control tone on there. That's what we hear when we just play through. And that is literally just audio. So it's playing through the grooves on the record, into the stylus, through the tone arm, and then out through the regular RCA connections. They are at phono level because it's coming from a regular turntable into the interface. Now in this case, it's a Rain 72, which controls all the Serato-y stuff that's going on. So the actual audio interface, the digital conversion is all happening within the mixer. It might be you have a DJ MS9, it might be you have an SL box or something like that, but Phase does not replace that interface. What Phase is replacing is the bit of audio that's going through the tone arm, through the RCAs into the interface. So let me just hook this up. So take out the RCAs from the turntable. I'm going to swap them out for RCAs from the Phase box, and I'm going to switch that from phono level to line level, and then we're going to take our stylus off. This is now completely disengaged from the whole thing. I'm going to get my remote, just put it flat for a second, let it connect properly. When the light goes solid, it's connected. There we go, and I'm going to put that onto the turntable, and now I'm still playing through the same input, so we're not actually controlling Serato right now. You can hear it's basically the same tone that's being generated. So this box from Phase is generating this control tone controlled by the remote. So the remote itself is telling the Phase box what to do with that information, what to do with the pitch and the positioning of that control tone. That means when we switch over, Serato DJ Pro, in this case, reads that as a normal control signal, as if it's coming from a piece of vinyl or from a CD or from a USB stick, wherever you've got that control tone from. So it will not bypass your mixer, your SL box, whatever you're using. It's just this part that is being removed. The tone arm, the record, and the RCAs into the mixer. So Phase does one thing and one thing only. It generates the control tone for your DVS software and feeds the audio of that control tone into your interface. It will only ever work in relative mode, not absolute, but it supports all the major DVS platforms like Serato DJ Pro, Rekordbox DJ, Traktor Pro, and Virtual DJ. What it has to do right is send that tone in exactly the same way as a control record would, because any deviation from that means that performance will be impacted. So back to the story. My set arrived at the start of April, straight from the factory in China, as MWM were hoping I'd be able to get my review out quickly. Immediately though, I had numerous problems. Calibration was off. With both turntables quartz locked, both phase remotes were sending different speed info, each at least 1% off, and in different directions. One was faster than 0, the other was slower. Serato DJ Pro would regularly switch itself from relative into internal mode. Cue drift when scratching was massive, and I had numerous times when one of the remotes would just lock up and become unable to be paired, the only solution being to leave the battery to drain overnight, forcing a reset. This is when I ran into what I think is the biggest issue with MWM as a company. Shortly after launch, customers were complaining that getting a support response from the company was painfully slow. Well, it wasn't just for the general public, it was for me too. I don't know if they've expanded their team now, but at the time of the launch, there just weren't enough people actually working on the project. Certainly not enough to deal with the avalanche of issues that users were having. Phase at launch was quite simply a deeply flawed product. They sent me a second set and put me onto all their internal alpha testing programs, but that's why I just couldn't review it until now. I had to offer MWM an opportunity to fix at least some of the prevalent issues, which they promised they would with their first big firmware update, which was itself delayed predictably. But that's finally here, so now it's review time. The hardware itself is actually pretty decent. It's about as compact as it could possibly be, which is on balance a good thing, although it may have been smarter to make it a little bit bigger and include a dedicated power supply, more on that later. The package comes with 2 pairs of RCA leads and a USB cable, which are all pretty good quality. It also comes with 4 of the magnetic stickers, which you need to apply to your records to hold the remotes in place. I think that's a little tight. One of the joys of DVS for me is being able to use different color control records, so I'd prefer that they put in at least 8. But companies like Digilog Designs and 12-inch Skins have quickly hit the market with extra stickers and phase-specific vinyl and control discs. You can use any record with phase that you want, or acrylic discs in the case of 12-inch Skins, so your imagination is the only limit. There have been some actual hardware failures, but that's to be expected with a new product. It happens with everything. Sometimes factories just get things wrong, especially in the early days of mass production. One hardware issue you need to keep an eye out for is swollen batteries. The remotes have very small lithium polymer batteries inside, and there was definitely a dodgy batch early on. As you can see here, one of mine started looking a little bit pregnant, and then it stopped functioning. That's pretty unsafe all round, but MWM will replace those without hesitation, as you would expect. Battery life itself is not mind-blowing. MWM promised up to 10 hours of battery life, but I've never really got anywhere close to that. In use, I'll typically get up to around about 5 to 6 hours off a full charge, but that can vary according to the conditions and how you use it. There have been reports of battery life taking a hit after the new firmware update, but I'm sure they can fix that. For me, 5 to 6 hours is generally the longest I'll ever need, and if you regularly play longer, the Ultimate Pack with 2 extra remotes would be a smart buy. The power situation is generally a little bit weird. The receiver is powered via USB, but it demands a lot of juice, so MWM generally advise not connecting it to, say, the USB ports on the back of the Rain 72. In the early days, most users, including myself, were getting best results powering the unit from an iPad charger or something similar, which works well, as you don't need a USB connection to your computer to use phase, but that is inconvenient as you can't then use the app. With more recent updates, I'm finding connecting to my laptop to work just fine, but I'd still have been happier if MWM had just provided a dedicated fixed voltage mains power adapter with the USB ports only used for calibration and updates. I'll be honest, I'm still not 100% sure exactly how the wireless tech works in phase. They say it's proprietary, but overall, it's pretty solid. I've heard some scare stories from other users about problems at big festivals, with loads of other wireless signals going on in the area, but one thing my phase units have never done is just lose connection with the receiver. Where I did initially have a lot of problems with connections was with the initial syncing, when you take the remotes off the receiver, and that has definitely improved with the new firmware, I'm glad to say. And I haven't had any remotes freeze up and die on me for quite some time now, so touch wood, I think those issues are mostly solved. There's no doubt the latency of the system is very, very impressive. When scratching, there's virtually no noticeable delay at all. When adjusting the pitch when you're beat matching, it responds quickly and precisely. I actually think, for reasons which will become clear, that regular mixing is the real strength of phase right now. It feels completely on point in that regard. MWM have overcome the pitch calibration issue with a new calibration option in the accompanying software. You put the remotes on your tables, quartz lock them, and then hit calibrate. Then 0 does mean 0. I don't really know why that wasn't there in the first place, it seems pretty obvious, but it's there now and it works great. A quick digression to talk about that MWM Connect software. It's not great. Not enough confirmation dialogues when you make changes, graphical glitches, and endless failures when trying to perform updates. There's also the fact that the Windows version can only be installed via the Microsoft Store, which means Windows 7 users can't install the app for basically no good reason. It's the only bit of DJ software I've ever needed a store account for. As MWM's core competency is supposed to be as an app developer, I expected much better from them, and I hope they can take some time to improve it in the future. Back to Phase itself. Cue point drift is still there after the updates. Some days I think it's improved, some days I don't. You can see it happening on screen right now. As you scratch and re-cue, the cue point moves around the record. This is something which most DVS systems have entirely eliminated over time with vinyl, but Phase still has it. So if your DJing involves a lot of routines without cue point jumps in them, you could find Phase pretty hard to work with. The way that I play, it's not a huge deal, but MWM were really pushing this as a tool for turntablists, so they need to keep working on that. So far, most of what I've mentioned has been platform agnostic. It's the same with everything. But in my experience, the majority of turntable DVS users are on Serato DJ Pro, and that software presents a couple of unique problems for Phase. Serato's control tone is not just a regular 2 kHz tone. It has their proprietary noise map technology in there, which is what helps the software be so precise when it comes to playhead position. And Phase doesn't have that, hence the red signal bars on the virtual decks instead of grey. So that's one of the reasons why cue drift is still, and probably always will be, a thing with Phase. It's also why the software usually switches itself from relative to internal mode at least once or twice during a set, generally early on. You can see it happening on the right deck right here. The software just isn't receiving the actual noise map control tone it's expecting, and it doesn't know how to deal with that. It's very quick to switch back to relative mode, especially if you know the keyboard shortcuts, but it has caught me unawares on occasion. So I'm going to address Serato here. You guys need to do whatever it takes to make Phase work seamlessly with your software, because for all the problems it has, Phase has the potential to take DVS on turntables, mostly with Serato, back to big festival stages in force for the first time in years. That's why people like Craze, A-Track and Jazzy Jeff are all over it. Suddenly, you being that one annoying DJ using turntables instead of CDJs in the main stage lineup becomes much less of a hassle for the sound engineers if you can say to them, don't worry about isolation, I just need the tables and power. And that's where I turn to the real positives of this product. Phase, when it works, is dope. Bass vibrating the tables, no problem. Flaky RCAs on the 1200s, no problem. Sure, it doesn't remove all the inherent problems with turntables, like worn out pitch faders and that kind of thing, but we already have tools to deal with that, like sync and anti-drift mode. A fully working Phase setup is about the most stable, reliable turntable DVS setup you can get in a harsh environment, and I've really enjoyed using it, having clocked up well over 100 hours of performance with it by now. So I'm hanging on. The big firmware update did not fix everything, but it's already a far more reliable product than it was in April, and I'm confident it will continue to get better still. But as we're talking about MWM, it could take a while. So there you go, my take on Phase. How to conclude this? This is a unique situation. This is like nothing else I've ever had to review before. I think there's two kinds of people who've probably watched the video to this point. There are those who are watching like a regular product review. Should I buy Phase? Yes or no? And there are those who've already bought Phase and they're looking for some reassurance that things are going to get better, that this product will one day be perfect. They're looking for reassurance that the issues they're having are not unique to them. So I'll speak to those people first of all. No, the problems you're having are not unique to you. They are not for everybody. Not everyone's having the same issues, but there are a bunch of issues with this which are found consistently across a lot of users, myself included. Is it going to get better? Yes, I think it will. Because the new firmware, I was kind of hoping that would be like a magic bullet, like all the issues would suddenly float away, everything's perfect in Phase land. That didn't happen. If anything, there are some new issues that have come up because of it. But what it's shown is that the product can get better. It can be improved. It can get closer to perfect than what it has been to date. So I'm still on board for that. You know, it's easy for me as a reviewer to say, you know, if you've invested hundreds of dollars in this, it's a bit trickier to say, but I do think it will get there. Will it ever be the most consistent, reliable product I've ever used? Probably not. But at the same time, I do really enjoy using Phase. It's got me using DVS and a laptop and turntables for open format work much more. In fact, I didn't really do that at all for the past few years. I've just gone completely standalone. And now here I am again using turntables, laptop in the booth, it's all there, and I've been really enjoying it. It removes some of the issues that you have in some booths with using DVS. So yeah, I really like it as a product. There's just no getting away from the fact it has all these issues. Those of you who are watching this video thinking, should I buy Phase? That's a much tougher question, really is. I think probably most of the people who want Phase have probably bought it already. I think the majority of that market is probably now, they've already invested in this. So if there's some of you out there still wondering, I honestly can't say to you, if you're looking to buy a product and take it home and have it be reliable and consistent every time you use it, that's not Phase. Right? If you take turntables out with you, if you're not worried about, you know, weight and size and so on, then, but you're looking to ditch the needles, then the Rain 12s are a much better investment, a much safer investment, because they are super reliable, they do the business, no problems with vibration, same kind of idea, you know, as Phase. You haven't got to worry about needles and vibration and dust and dirt, etc. So Rain 12s, that's a better way forward for those of you who take turntables out with you. If you don't take turntables, obviously Rain 12 is not really an option. So it's going to be back to needles or it's going to be back to Phase. I don't know. All I can say is this. It is improving. It has improved. I'm certain it will improve more. But if you're not prepared to be a beta tester still, then now is not the time to buy Phase. I don't think they're going to drop new hardware. In fact, I think they cannot drop new hardware anytime soon. There cannot be a Phase 2.0 anytime soon, because that will be the end of the company. Done. Shut it down. And I will happily help dig that grave, because they cannot abandon the people who've bought this first generation hardware. They cannot do that. They have to make this work to, if not perfection, then almost perfection. Otherwise, that's MWM finished. No more space for them in the DJ industry. Forget it. So they will make this hardware work. I think if you're investing in this hardware right now, you can trust it's not going to get replaced anytime soon for that reason. But yeah, it's basically impossible. This is not still a finished product. If you want to buy a finished product, don't buy this. If you're happy to be part of that testing kind of life and working with it, then I do think the benefits of Phase are there. They are manifest. It is a really cool product. It always was. From the first prototypes, it was really cool. It just is beset with issues that are going to make some people completely turn off from it. And that I understand. I'm still on board. Whether you are, that's up to you. Thank you for watching today. Make sure you subscribed and you hit that bell icon down below to get notified anytime there's a new video from myself or the rest of the DJ City team. I'll see you soon.